furious at himself out of guilt. When he found out about his wife's affair, Andy got drunk and stumbled over to the golf pro's home with a revolver to shoot them. I mean, he obviously wasn't going to go through with it. He sobered up and came to his senses, but on some level, the desire or fantasy of murdering them was there. One he might have felt bad about having come the morning. However, when they do actually then get murdered, even if it wasn't him, it brings home the reality of what that little part of him was wishing for. It's him as being very icy and sinister, and to the extent it takes him age, kind of film where it fits. Also, Red doesn't actually spout much exposition at all in the voiceovers. He's mainly just cementing some of the themes or Andy's feelings, or his opinion on Andy's feelings. I think we could follow the plot pretty much fine with the narration muted, so I think that helps it not feel as lazy. I'm perhaps expecting you to return to crime. All of that does just make change incredibly.
Old life blown away in the blink of an eye. Nothing left but all the time in the world to think about it.
It's important because Andy is this slightly closed off entertaining to make it a favourite for both those types of audiences. You'd be hard pressed not only to find anybody who doesn't like the movie, but anybody who wouldn't rank it as one of their favourites, as I definitely would. Obviously there will be spoilers on the off chance any of you haven't already, so that he can stay in prison. We're given one of the most heartbreaking sequences in cinema, where the idea of outside life, the very dream of a prisoner, what should be the most beautiful, good thing of all, becomes so frightening as to turn away from it. This isn't a story about escape because the spirits have become too broken to even want that. First hope to be
a dangerous thing. Better get used to that idea. Like Brooks said.
Which is why it is so thematically important that we as the audience kind of forget about escape in this film. Because when you think about escape, and not just in terms of prison, but escaping an addiction, an abusive relationship, a rut in your life, a state of feeling, whatever it is, it doesn't just come down to that practical dilemma of how to actually get away, the technical aspects of like digging the tunnel and when to make a break for it, how to avoid the cards kind of stuff. What it also comes down to is that emotion had experiences and time stretching out into this agonising empty treadmill of an full experiences. The beers on the roof, my god. In terms of just how vivid it is, that's a scene I find one of the most beautiful in any film, really.
We sat and drank with the sun on our shoulders and felt like free men. Hell, we could have been tarring the roof of one of our own houses. We were the
in life, as though to try and find some clear answer as to a good thing. I think that's something I've talked about at times in the past, but here I just wanted to point out the power of beauty, even in the small and very sparse moments, because within this of a life kid,
hey, come on, old boys! Move it like molasses! Making me look bad!
Tommy represents potential for the future as this thief who has been in and out of prisons for years, now finally looking to change. Not just thinking about it, but incredibly driven. Seen for the example of his determination to pass exams despite the fact he barely knew how to read in the beginning. He represents the hope of a future generation, the hope that criminals can be reformed, that people can do better, that people at a great disadvantage, so much as even being illiterate, can grow and achieve. And in fact, I think his story of the exam is a bit like a mini fable about this hope versus fear struggle, where he becomes so convinced he's done badly and will fail the exam that he screws up his paper and throws it away, afraid to see his imagined failure printed in a grade. Whereas Andy maintains hope and mails the paper anyway, to the revelation then that Tommy did actually pass. His fears were wrong, you know? How easily our fears can limit our capacity to begins mostly with the death of Tommy, who, if hope was a motif in this film, Tommy was, but this hope Tommy represents is then destroyed in his murder at the hands of the warden. It's a three-way death of hope in this film, however. Firstly, because it's the loss of this good man being killed. Secondly, because it's the loss of Andy's one chance to prove his innocence, since Tommy could stand as witness. And thirdly, because it leads to the warden turning nasty to Andy and putting him through 2 months of solitary confinement, which is just horrendous. Solitary confinement for extended periods, especially like that, is just torture, really. All of it appears to finally break Andy. Shawshank has finally broken him, as it has so many others. The entire arc of the movie kind of leads towards this knife point. And we get a shot of Andy silent in his cell, holding the rope. The cell split between light and dark on either side of him, emphasising this knife point between hope and fear even more so, between a rope for a noose or a rope to help his escape. We're led to switching and taking records so that he could both empty out the warden's funds to himself, whilst also providing evidence for his crime to send him down. That's more than just work hard and the world will reward you. Whilst on the one hand it's not an unexpected twist, I think we do imagine some escape of sorts to happen, and it would be a very unsatisfying film if Andy did just hang himself here. But I like how directorially, how seamlessly everything transitions in this film to make 19 years past tenacity or sense of clear direction to what you're working at. Because Andy isn't
Like some beautiful bird flapped into our drab little cage and made those walls dissolve away.
The power of its beauty is so great that the few minutes of music makes the 2 weeks in the hole that follows.
Easiest time I ever did.
There are just some experiences we have, for whatever reason, that feel like beauty beyond all ordinary existence and that are worth just cherishing forever. One I have is from when I was about 13 at school, waiting for the bus home on a sunny day under a conker tree, and a group of us, for some reason, playing this game of trying to throw conkers so they curved round this turn in the road, and all the while listening to Three Little Birds by Bob Marley on repeat that one of us had on their Motorola Razr flip phones.
Open this door!
Rehabilitation, though. Our introduction to Red is through a parole hearing with them asking if he feels he's being rehabilitated. We see it happening 3 times throughout this film, asking the same question despite Red seeing it as
a made-up word. A politician's word, so that young fellows like yourself can wear a suit and a tie and have a job.
And yet what about Shawshank Prison has functioned to rehabilitate anyone into society? Search and the warden even taking Andy's Bible briefly, all the while knowing the hammer hidden in the Bible. The thrill of that. One being how to maintain hope when it is understandably very difficult. I think the film makes, yet this movie functions perfectly to make Andy's escape come as a surprise. Not as a great shock, admittedly. I mean, it makes sense. No one would have said it was completely unexpected, but it is still a twist. Which I'm highlighting not just because it's clever storytelling, how to make the expected outcome end up in 1 letter a week asking for funds to build a library until he does finally get them. Or the idea...
Geology is the study of pressure and time. That's all it takes, really. Pressure and time.
Which on its own does stand for that general idea of working hard in life to achieve things, but I think it's particularly the fact this grit often comes alongside a kind of
Hope.
I suppose the clearest metaphor for all of it is Andy as a man
Who crawled through a river of shit and came out clean on the other side.
and interpretations about his friend enhances this. It's like the Sherlock told through the lens of Watson type thing. And obviously, like I hinted earlier, having a voiceover makes hope and fear. Can you maintain belief in this better world? Can you really trust? Fear it too greatly? You know, when you've become used to alcohol or whatever as the thing that makes you feel better, can you believe that you can function happily without it? That beyond that initial stage of withdrawal you will adjust, or that turning away from the partner who hurts you or makes you feel miserable, that there will be greater happiness beyond that initial pit of loneliness you feel in their absence. And so it's the emotion of that struggle that the film functions perfectly to express. Hope isn't just beautiful but incredibly fragile. Whilst Red is right to say it's a terrible thing to live in fear, it's also very hard not to at many times in our lives. What we witness across the majority of this film is, in many ways, hope isn't the deepest, most artistic of themes. I don't think I've said anything about it here that's, groundbreaking or whatever, but I don't think it matters. Hope is a universal theme for a film, one that touches everybody's heart very closely, because we all, in our own ways and with our own scale, understand that struggle between hope and fear, between getting busy living or busy dying. This film is so loved because it touches everybody's heart and does it through a setting and a story that can talk about hope without it being